Last night I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a comment that really saddened me as a seasoned photographer for all of the new photographers coming into the industry and for those of you guys who consider yourselves amateurs. It was on a Facebook ad for Lightroom presets where someone who considered themselves a professional photographer took it upon themselves to leave a comment basically blasting anybody who used Lightroom presets. They said that presets were simply for noobs and that professionals edit photos on a case-by-case basis. Not only do I think that this comment was just downright inconsiderate, but I also consider it to be factually incorrect. I'm a professional photographer who travels all across the United States and even to different countries to photograph couples, and I use Lightroom presets in my workflow, and my work is published on many different mediums. And I read this the day before I was getting ready to launch my Lightroom preset pack to you guys. So instead of making a video where I simply market these presets to you guys, I want to educate you guys on how I use Lightroom presets in my workflow as a professional photographer and some of the things you guys can do to make your own presets in Adobe Lightroom. If you guys want to support me after this, the link to my preset pack is in the description down below. It means a lot, but without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. So one of the things that was brought out in that Facebook comment is that professionals make adjustments on a case-by-case basis, and there is some truth to that. Similarly, when I choose Lightroom presets, I'm choosing it on a case-by-case basis because certain presets are simply a better starting point than others. But let's use an extreme example. The preset that I used on this photo that I actually made this preset with was Modern X. But let's look at cross-process. This is not something I would put in my portfolio. We can see that there's some issues with it, so let's go through and adjust it and make it look more presentable. So the whole goal with using presets is to bring consistency to your editing portfolio and speed up your workflow. So when we go here, we're going to bring down the exposure. Now, I like what's going on here. The one thing that I'm not sure I like here is just how soft her face blends in with the rest of the photo. Now I did bring the clarity down in this case for this preset because all of these presets are designed to look like film. Now I could bring back definition by simply adding that clarity back, but that defeats the whole filmic purpose of this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at our tone curve here because we have a sharp clip on these highlights on this S curve. So what I can do here is I can simply drag this up to bring some definition back into her face. You see how that works right there? Right about there. So that gave us a little bit more definition for what we were going for. And again, it's up to your liking, but right here is what looks good for my taste. Now, this isn't what we started with. This isn't a one-click process. There are some tiny adjustments that have been made throughout the editing that make this look better. Let's take another example over here. So all of these presets are designed for overcast scenarios. This day was actually kind of rainy, and I really just wanted to bring that mood and emotion to the editing of that overcast rainy day. So these aren't presets that we're going to be using for bright and sunny days or for backlit days or golden hour. This is for those moody, dreary presets. I called it nostalgics for a reason. I always love those rainy days because I feel like rainy days tend to have a lot of memories tied to them. Let's look at preset gloom because I feel like this is going to give us the most problems. So we start with this preset, but we can notice a few things. There's no detail in her coat that actually we can see has detail here. So we're losing detail in her coat, and furthermore, she's looking a little bit dead in the skin. So we're going to go through and correct that. So the first thing we can do to bring detail back into her coat is we're going to drop that low end on this curve just a little bit. And then when we're looking at what's going on with her face, we can make some temperature adjustments, or better yet, let's just go in to our hue and saturation panel instead of working with the temperature. So we're going to go up and we're going to click here. Let's just adjust the hue. Okay, so that makes her look more sick. Bringing it down and bringing more magenta into her skin kind of brings her skin back to life. So I like what's going on there, and then we can add a little bit of saturation because you can see we're taking out yellows here, and she has a yellow undertone in her skin. So just by bringing that up, actually it was the orange that was taken out of her skin. Now we have a better looking image compared to what we had at first. And when we look here, There's some other things we can do. Again, this is a really soft preset because again, it's designed to have that filmic style. But if we want to bring in a little bit more definition, we can simply work with that tone curve. I'm gonna drop that point down just a little bit and just really work with our finite adjustments to get something that's a little bit more pleasing. I might just back up on the clarity just a little bit. And right there is a great before and after shot. So let's talk about how we create presets now. We've gone through 2 of the presets here, and I could go through and I can just click on each and every one and show you how we edit them to make them more natural looking, especially a photo like this. I love Modern X on it, but let's talk about how we make a preset. Let's talk about a black and white preset here. So the first thing is I keep my photo and I make sure I start with a nice photo. That's the whole goal. You always want to start with a good photo. I have linked some good raw photos down below that you guys can edit on if you feel like you don't have any in your portfolio, but it's best to use your work. So I start off in the black and white tab. Now I'm again going for a filmic look. So film looks have a few characteristics. They're soft, so we're going to be soft on the clarity, and then they have some type of fade in the shadows, and the highlights are brought down generally. It's a really high dynamic range image. So we can start with our basic corrections here. I'm going to bring down the blacks to add contrast because I love contrasty black and whites. So remember, we're just making corrections on what we want. If we want more contrast, we can either pull these sliders, the shadows and the blacks in a certain direction and the highlights and the whites in a certain direction, or use the contrast curve. I like to leave the contrast curve open as well as exposure for the most part, so that you're able to work with that later after you apply your preset. And then I'm gonna boost the highlights just a bit, see what that does. I'm not liking that, maybe the whites. I think the whites was what I was going for right there. So we have a more contrasty image now. And then I'm gonna back off on the clarity a bit. So I like that -25 range, because it just softens up that skin is what it does. And it makes them look a lot more, I don't wanna say doll-like, but it gives them a more editorial look in the skin. And it doesn't look unrealistic because it's being applied to the whole photo. We don't have to have all that digital sharpness. Plus, most of our eyes are getting bad as we get older, so we can't really tell. So now we're gonna create that S curve. So I like to drop down a point here, and I'm gonna raise these blacks up a bit. And then I'm gonna straighten this curve out. Cause see, my whole point is only really to affect the bottom end and the top end. I'm gonna add another point here, and we're gonna just come down on the highlights. Now, again, it looks like we just completely, lost some detail here, which is understandable. We do know that there is a natural shadow here, but it's not that harsh. So what I'm gonna do here now is we're gonna go into the black and white mix, and we can adjust the actual colors and basically their luminance values. So I know she has orange skin, so I wanna make that a little bit brighter. And I don't want it to look unrealistic. So yeah, we can see there that now she looks a little bit ghosty. So let's back off a little bit, just do a slight bit, and then the yellows too, and the reds, and the blues. Now we can come back in here and back off a little bit on how much we bring those shadows down. And that is a simple start to simply creating a preset. We're going through and we're making the adjustments that we want to make in the end game. And then we can also, if we have a favorite way of sharpening our photos to speed up our workflow, that's something we can add in here too. I always like to push my sharpening all the way up before it gets to the red. And then what I like to do is I use the Alt key. I'm gonna mask that out so that it's just affecting the places that I want sharpened. And then I might just increase the radius a bit. So now when I go through and I go and apply a preset, like this one, which I did something a little bit different, all of those things are going to be an account, and then I can adjust them as needed. So I didn't use a tone curve here. I just went really heavy on the clarity, but I can back off there a little bit. And I'm going to reach a similar effect. All I have to do is just drop down the tone curve a bit, and we have a similar effect. You see how I was able to do that much quicker. That's the whole purpose of Lightroom presets. It's not to sit here and, be a noob photographer. It's to work smarter. not harder. And that is the whole goal of my Lightroom preset pack, is to help people work smarter and achieve those dreamier looks that they are going for, nostalgic looks, those rainy day looks that we've come to know and love. And that is the whole goal, especially like this film right here. This reminds me of those disposable cameras I would get as a kid, just the way it looks, the skin tones, the way they come out, and it's just a different take. But when we look at the overall portfolio, especially if I come in here and I edit this one, let's just throw a quick preset on here so we can look before we get off of here at a final situation. Let's use Gatsby for a second. And I'm liking what's done there. I'm just gonna draw back and bring some definition back into her coat. Right there, so it's not too heavy on the fade. And then, so the goal is that when we go and look at our library, and we look at these photos, they fit a consistent looking theme. And that's what we're going for, consistency in our editing workflow, so we can get multiple presets so that when a client looks at our portfolio, they're going to see professionalism and they know what they're going to get. That's the whole goal of Lightroom presets, guys. The logical fallacy in the argument was that Lightroom presets are meant to just be a one-click option. I never approach any preset with simply one click. I design all of my presets that I use in my workflow to be able to be adjusted to each situation that you will encounter. The lighting is always different. The color casts are always different. White balances are always different. A preset is never going to be a one-click option, but a starting point. Again, if you guys would like to support me, the link to my Lightroom preset pack is in the description down below. Because this preset pack is designed for a certain lighting situation, I am continuing my previous preset pack as well instead of updating it, because I don't want you guys to just be confined to one situation. If you guys like this video, be sure to give me a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on those post notifications if you have not. Be sure to follow me on my social media. The links are in the description down below, as well as the YouTube fam. Their links are also in the description down below. If you guys are ever feeling uninspired, uncreative, or just want to give up on life, remember, every day airplanes take off against the wind. Keep climbing, stay inspired, and as always, stay fabulous. My name is Sydney, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.